I'm Carlijn, I'm living in a tent.
Yeah. Carlijn, came across your story thanks to the beautiful LinkedIn algorithm. For those that didn't read that article, maybe you can summarize.
I lived 1 year without a house. And my intention was not to convince everybody to go live in a tent, but just to rethink what you need in your life. Often when we read in the media about burnouts, it's about...
Burnout is one of the leading mental health issues.
Chronic workplace stress.
Burnout as officially a workplace condition.
And I also experienced a burnout, in a company I created and with a team I loved and the work I loved doing.
Where do you still struggle to live on purpose?
It's a good question. And I was like, I'm never going to get the validation I'm looking for. They're never going to give that to me. So why am I doing this?
Carlijn, I find it important to start all of my podcasts with the same question because usually it establishes how the rest of the conversation continues. And that question is, are you happy?
Good question. Yeah, I am. Very much, yeah.
What, in your opinion, is required to live a happy life?
To do daily what you enjoy, something that inspires you, and in my case also getting enough sleep.
Do you think we should chase happiness?
No.
Why not?
I think if we search it outside of ourselves, it's an endless chase. Whereas if we pause and slow down and just keep it really simple, small things you do every day that make you happy, I think there we find the most joy. It's not in the big accomplishments.
For this particular podcast, I have almost a research hypothesis. And that research hypothesis is passion equals purpose. What are your thoughts on that particular statement?
That's an interesting hypothesis. Yeah, I think the words passion and purpose are used a lot in the media. So it's also something like an outcome you need to find. And in how I see it, like passion is something you experience when you do something you love. And can be anything, can be a sport or... And I think as human beings, we are all passionate about solving problems or improving ourselves or getting better. And it can be in all different range of things. And it's not something we should think, what is my passion? But something we should try and experience. When you feel it, you know, oh, I just love this and I want more of this. And regarding purpose, I see this also not as much as an outcome, but as a role we take in the world. And it's a role you take on to for a mission you have, or in a relationship you take a role to bring more harmony. And of course, it's great if your passion and your purpose are the same thing. If you're really passionate about the role you take on. But I believe we can also have passions with things that have no goal at all.
Yeah.
So like, whatever. You could do like gardening that has some goal, but like things you enjoy doing that don't have a purpose, you can still be very passionate about it.
I came across your story thanks to the beautiful LinkedIn algorithm, and it was just fascinating to read, especially, I mean, maybe it's better to just let you tell it. I think you know what article I'm talking about.
Yeah.
For those that didn't read that article, maybe you can summarize.
Yeah, I didn't expect it would reach so many people. It almost reached 1 million people. So I was like, oops.
Yeah.
Because I shared on LinkedIn, I lived 1 year without a house. So, which for me was also, strange to share that on LinkedIn, looking at my professional lives and the collaborations I had done with large corporates. And then, okay, I'm just going to post, I'm Carlijn, I'm living in a tent.
Yeah.
So that felt a bit weird. But I felt it was important to share that as a reminder of what really makes us happy in a day, what you really need. And my intention was not to convince everybody to go live in a tent, but just to rethink what you need in your life and what makes you happy and how little you actually need.
Yeah, because for that you moved specifically to Portugal, right? For that particular, I don't know, test sounds so strange, but that when you decided to move into a tent.
It wasn't a planned action. So I was already living in Portugal with my ex, and we had bought the land, and we separated on really good terms, luckily. And then I traveled more south with friends and just decided to live there in a tent.
Yeah.
And so I bought the land, like a small property for myself on the edge of the national park. And instead of rushing to finish this house or renovation, we like to just place a big tent, like a safari tent, and
what was that experience in itself like? I mean, going from the Netherlands, which you definitely grew up in, at least, to that. Was there a big switch over? What were sort of the main issues, I think, as well? What was surprisingly easy?
Yeah, it was funny. Up front, there were a lot of things I was thinking but that's not possible, or that's not normal, or you can't do that, or something. It's really funny how your ego starts seeing problems, which in the end aren't there. And I'm lucky to have also experienced like more, comfortable life or luxurious life. But in the end, the things that make me happy are the same things. So it's like the sunrise, the cats, being with friends, going for a walk by the sea, just the small things, good food.
Yeah.
So I realized it's quite easy to do that, and how little you actually need. So, for example, living there without, like, living off grid, so you don't have access to water, but then with big water tanks, like with 100-liter a week, you have sufficient amount of water. Going to the toilet, that was a good
an
thing.
Adjustment period.
I was like, oh, that's not possible. But in the end, it makes way more sense, because when you have like a compost toilet, when you go for number 2, it actually becomes earth again, compost after 2-3 months. This box also doesn't smell or anything, and you don't use drinking water to flush our own waste, which doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, after a while, when you are at a friend's place who has a house, then you can look at the tap and be like, what a luxury, you have a tap.
Yeah.
So that was funny to experience.
Fascinating, at least. Going back to my question about passion equals purpose, would you say you have a specific passion, at least?
I think I have many, and I'm exploring many over the years. So I've always listened to myself and like what I enjoy doing, and during my studies, I'm fascinated by human behavior. So that's also what I studied, and it took some time to figure that out. That was my 3rd study, so that's why I say just try it and then see what grabs you. And I was able to do that in my work later on in the companies I started. So I always did things from my heart.
Yeah.
So in terms of studying and work, I think it was close to my passion, or what I just love to learn about more and more and to try out. But also in my own life, like I'm passionate about human behavior and just trying out things like setting a challenge, like a month without sugar, and see what happens in my body. I love those kind of things, but I'm also really passionate about sports. So I love to run, to cycle, to swim, to surf.
Doing sports, then I guess not so much watching.
no, less. But I love doing things, and
You set up a few different companies, from what I could say. I think 3, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
What led you to starting that first company, at least?
Yeah, good question. We started it in 2012. So there was a crisis in the Netherlands going on, and they were warning for it. There are not a lot of jobs available. And I was doing my master's. I was doing 2 masters at the VU in Amsterdam, and then a friend of mine, my best friend from when we grew up, we just decided, let's create our own job. Then we're not dependent on anything. And we really wanted to learn more. And we were getting better with, with social media and learning about how companies can reach the young generation. So then we started selling that to corporates, how they could reach the young generation.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to create a bigger network of other entrepreneurs. So we started organizing events with entrepreneurs where they would then create these marketing campaigns, how to reach the young generation.
Yeah.
So our intention was really to create an income, of course, and to learn. We just wanted to learn a lot. We wanted to learn how to work with companies, how to sell a project, how we could create a community of young entrepreneurs, how we can broaden our network among corporates, among young entrepreneurs. And yeah, that was for 3.5 years we did that. And that was so much fun, and it gave us a lot of freedom.
I was talking to Reinier van Landschot last week, and he's currently the co-president behind Volt. And he had an interesting explanation in which he basically said that often our work life is so long, and what we tend to do, especially at my, let's say, quarter life stage, is want to force everything into one particular job. Meaning, the way he essentially explained it is sometimes you just have jobs what you're there to learn for, and then there's others that will be more fulfilling, and then there are ones that will just bring in the money, etc., etc. What was that first company for you then? Did that check all the boxes as being an entrepreneur, or was that more of a learning thing, or?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and I agree with Reinier on that. I agree with a lot of things with him. It wasn't to build a large company. We weren't looking for investors. We were offered investment as well, but we just wanted to have our freedom. We wanted to learn a lot, be able to travel, make money, make impact with what we were doing.
Yeah.
And that was what it gave us. It was a stepping stone, a learning ground.
Yeah.
And
it seems in general, from what I can tell from your experience so far, that chasing stats or money or anything that has a almost endless goal has never really been a problem for you. Could that be correct?
Yeah.
Why is that, do you think?
Because I think money is really handy. Like, I like money and it's handy.
Yeah.
But it's not a goal on itself, because most things I enjoy, I mean, it's cliche, but they're for free.
Yeah.
And I like to view my life as this time to experience a lot of things and to learn stuff and to grow and to develop. And yeah, that's always been my main goal.
Right. Maybe going fast forward a little bit, tell a little bit more about the company you currently are building.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, Elena and I started the On Purpose studio. After working in consultancy and working on cultural transformations and innovation teams within large corporates, we said, what really makes the impact? Where do we really make the difference? And that was where we could empower people to be a better leader, to overcome their own limiting beliefs, to take care of themselves first, to be bigger than their ego. So that's what we were driven to focus on that. So that's why we started the On Purpose Studio. And it's also a program which we wanted at the time. So we've compiled all the tools and techniques from based on science, but also a lot based on ancient wisdom and practices that have helped us heal old patterns and old wounds and act less from the ego. So we wanted to make that available for more people in a very practical way. Because I love spirituality, but it needs to make sense and it needs to be applicable to my daily life. Otherwise, it becomes this theoretical concept.
Yeah.
And then I lose interest.
Yeah. In that, or like even the title of that company is obviously On Purpose to You. You talk a lot about living on purpose.
Yeah.
Where do you still struggle to live on purpose?
That's a good question. Yeah, so living on purpose, meaning you live intentionally, you do things intentionally. But there are still moments where I can also be on autopilot, I think. But not often. But maybe in my... I think over the years I've learned to stay close to myself and be authentic in who I am and in my friendships, in work, and in relationships has always been more of a challenge. I easily lose myself, or from a place of excitement, just do what the other person likes to do, and then I forget my own things. So I think there is still a place that I'm practicing and learning to be better. Yeah.
Right. Is there any, like, if there was one piece of advice from all of the advice that you give during your workshops, etc., which would be at least the most, let's say, reoccurring one, but also the most important one for people to just start doing more in their daily life?
So how the program is built up, we're not sharing advice, but we share questions. So to help people think. And I think the most important question is, what do you need? Mm-hmm. What do you really need? So not from our mind thinking, putting your hand on your heart and saying, okay, I'm here, I'm listening. What do you need? What do you really need? And I think that is just small things. What do you need today? And I think there's a lot of change can happen there. Yeah,
because it's very common, especially in let's say countries such as where I am from, or Germany and Netherlands, but in general, like Western countries, to forget that question, to get wrapped up in the needs that you think you need according to standards. How do you then? How do you know what you need? Like, is it as simple as just looking inside yourself?
I believe it's a practice, because, like you say, in Western countries, we're very well trained in the communication channel between, like, say, ourselves and our minds to ask what we need.
Yeah,
and then there comes a whole list of to-do lists, and this is very skilled. We're skilled at communicating from the mind. Communicating from the heart, we do less. So it's like there's a small child inside yourself that needs really basic things, or that brings him or her joy.
Yeah. And
we often don't listen to that because we're too busy rushing around. So we actually abandon that the little, the 7-year-old, our 7-year-old selves, who is asking for attention and asking us to listen. And when you've ignored that for 10, 20, 30 years, you need to really rebuild that relationship.
And why do you think we ignore that?
Because we are trained to listen to the mind.
Fair enough. Obviously, this podcast is called The Quarter Life Crisis. Did you have a quarter life crisis?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
No, I've had some existential crisis. Maybe I think I've had a crisis like when I was studying, and because I'm also dyslexic and have ADHD, so it didn't really fit for me. It was hard to find the right thing. So it took me like 6 years to finish a bachelor, and I already tried like 3 different studies. So there I felt a bit lost. Like, what am I going to do? But then talking to professors that inspired me, got me on the right track. And later on, I think in Portugal, before I lived in a tent for a year, right, without anything, and leaving my other company, the question was, for who do I actually do this? A friend asked that, for who do you do this, the work you're doing? And I couldn't answer that. I was like, okay, I need to think that for a while. And I thought about it for a few days, and then I just woke up and think, I'm doing this to prove to my bosses that I'm good enough. I'm pleasing my clients, that I want to give them, I want to overperform, that I'm good enough. And I was like, I'm never going to get the validation I'm looking for. They're never going to give that to me. So why am I doing this?
And then it was like right away, okay, adios.
Well, no, not really, but that kicked in like an existential crisis, because I loved the company I had created. So I loved the team and everything, but there were also a lot of challenges in the country, in Greece, we're working in. So, and then I just felt, okay, let's follow my heart. Let's have an open conversation in the Netherlands, how to resolve this. And we found a way to close the office in a very positive way. So I'm proud of that we were able as a team to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a crisis moment, that question. Yeah.
I think, well, the natural follow-up question that I usually ask, you kind of already answered. Normally, one of the main reasons why I started this podcast as well is because at some point I was done with studying, at least, had all these paths in front of me, and then was like, no idea. I have no idea. And that almost became overwhelming as a result, that there were too many options almost, which is a luxury.
Yeah,
there's a luxury
absolutely.
that not a lot of people have, but that doesn't make it not stressful, not crisis like driven. And I think then my follow-up question is, do you have any advice for figuring out what path then maybe is best for you to follow in that situation?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful, I think, to let go of the idea that there is the best choice, and to realize that we often overestimate the capacity of our mind. So we try to think of this best choice, which is really tiring, and it's rational. Whereas if we just start something, we'll experience it, we'll feel something, if we like it or not, and why yes or why no, and then we can go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, I say explorative way of just trying. Just try something, see how you feel, and then decide from there.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to think up front how you're going to feel.
One of the interesting things that I just found, like you mentioned, is that you have ADHD.
Yeah.
I've now spoken perchance to, I think, 3 people in the past month or so that have that as well, and said to have had a similar struggle when it came to finishing anything that they were, in their case, and that's what I'm curious for you, they were doing it for the sake of doing it. A study, because they're like, I need to do a study, so this, and then not being able to finish it. Do you think, I don't know what studies you did, but was that a problem? Like not believing in that particular study fully?
Yeah, when you feel, I can relate to that. Like when you feel it doesn't make sense, you just can't focus. And also in work, I later experienced that. Like my boss at the time said, at some moments you're a 9 out of 10 and others you're a 3. There's like a huge difference between it. Either I love it and I'm fully into it, I'm really focused and I'm on top of it. Or I'm like, I don't know, what's the point? And then it's really hard to motivate myself.
I guess what I'm curious about it is mainly because I see similarities in myself. I don't know whether I have it. Maybe have at least not struggled with anything as a result, but I just found it interesting that particular, especially what you just described, that was very similar.
And I think for me personally, like my attention just shifts really fast.
Yeah.
And also my energy can shift really fast. I can get really excited and then like really disappointed and really angry. So it can go all directions. And for me, meditation has really helped to have less of those peaks. So to train my attention and to
especially in having an own company though, right? You have naturally more of those peaks.
Yeah,
no?
absolutely. And I notice when I feel overwhelmed or I start going in loops of thoughts and I'm starting to believe those thoughts, that's for me also always a cue, like, you probably haven't meditated for a few days. So it's good to go for a long walk if I'm too restless to meditate and then just sit still.
Yeah.
That just helps a lot for me to distinguish the difference on what is important, what's not so important.
Because I recently, I make a vlog every week for this podcast in which I essentially talk about what's going on. And last week I did one in which I talked more about feeling somewhat burnt out. Because besides juggling 40-hour work week, I'm also doing this in between. It's just a lot, period. So what I think, and I'm still testing my own hypothesis here, is that the main reason why it's overwhelming and essentially leading to a semi-burnout is because I forget all these small things, such as meditating, such as working out, or at least I don't prioritize them, that should be first. And you recently had a post yourself where you're like, I schedule free time in where I tell people that I have a meeting or something. In reality, I'm just, I don't know, what do you say, taking time for myself or something like that, or reading in the morning?
Or having a lunch or, just to make, because that's so true, because I think often in when reading the media about burnout, it's about working in a toxic culture or hating your job or whatever. And I also experienced a burnout, in a company I created and with a team I loved and the work I loved doing. And I was really passionate about it. And then I just started working 60, 70 hours a week and saying, today I don't have time for sports, tomorrow. And then at some point, for like half a year, I was neglecting myself. I was last.
Yeah.
And I think that's very common for people to do, for founders to do. And then we want to break free from it all, because it becomes this burden.
Yeah.
And I believe what the key to change that is to focus on the small things you do every day. And that has helped me also, because I couldn't go away. I couldn't leave the company, then it would crash.
Yeah.
But I started to design my day differently. And just starting the morning, taking care of myself, tuning in with myself, getting clear on my priorities for that day, having some time to move, to eat healthy, to see friends, to call with a friend or family. That's so important.
Yeah.
It's really the small things.
Yeah. It's strange how much, like that's it. That's literally the problem or the solution often, but it seems so for our Western standards, I guess, so easy, almost like it's too easy. That can't be it.
But that is it. I think for me, like when you ask, are you happy? I'm happy because I do those things, because I design my days in a way that I do the things that I need to feel good.
Yeah.
And that not only benefits me, but that benefits the people around me, because I'm a way nicer person when I do those things. And it benefits my company and the impact we can make.
Yeah.
And it's so small, right? It's really the little things that we often overlook.
I think we also, just so many, I don't know, so obvious kind of, because it also relates to this looking for hacks, right? How can I be fit quickly? How can I do this quickly? This wanting to have quick solutions essentially is stupid. Like,
Yeah,
In
quick fixes.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work, and then it goes from extremes, and I've done that too. Where I had 10 years ago, where I was going from training every day, an hour and a half in the gym, and then juicing all week, and then you're like, okay, the next week, fuck it, I'm gonna drink and I'm gonna do nothing, and then you are in between extremes. And I think it's what you do daily. And often we feel, today I don't have time for this. And that really starts in your mind. And I notice it as a cue. Like if I start saying to myself, like in the evening I go to bed, and in the morning I'll go for a run, for example. And the first thought I have is, I don't have time for that. Then it's like, okay, I really have to do it. Because I'm already in the loop where I'm saying to myself, you're not allowed to do that.
Yep.
You first have to do other things. And the less you do those things that are good for you, the less productive you are.
Yeah.
The more you start overthinking, the more you start procrastinating. So you actually waste time later on.
Yeah.
And when you do those things, like when I feel fit, I wake up in the morning, I do my exercises, and I sit focused without being disturbed, like having my phone off, and I focus for 3 hours. I do the same amount of work I do in a day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you can win time.
Yeah. How have you experienced like the sign up to your courses regarding like men? Do a lot of men come on your course?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it's 50-50, and we're really happy about that, because it's so nice to have men and women in a group.
Yeah.
That creates a really nice dynamic. And I've heard, like, I get back as feedback from a lot of the men who join. They say, like, they feel like I represent with the masculine energy of the two of us, of Elena and I. And yeah, I hear that often. I don't know. But I've always had a lot of guy friends as well. I mean, girlfriends as well. But so I think I maybe think like a man a bit or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm really happy that we have that mix.
Yeah.
And that both men and women feel comfortable and trust us in these programs.
Yeah. Because I do think, especially the programs that you offer, still comes more naturally for women to follow. Like I feel like it's improving, but just naturally men tend to talk less about their feelings or just assessing themselves,
Yeah, totally. And for me personally as well, like 6 years ago, I wouldn't ask for help. I would never be vulnerable. I would never admit that I would be in a crisis or anything like that. So, and I think what appeals to a lot of people is that we approach spirituality in a very practical way. And we don't make it heavy, or, we make it light. And in a way of zooming out and looking at yourself with a bit of sense of humor. Like, now I'm doing that again, just to take, to have a bit less that attachment.
Yeah.
What you do is not who you are. It's what you become. But at the core, you are someone, you can decide what you do. And sometimes you make shitty decisions, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then tomorrow you make better ones.
Yeah.
And I think that is what appeals to people.
I have a relatively new segment on my show. You've probably seen the jar in front of you. I collected a bunch of questions from my community members and have essentially put them in this jar. So I'd like to take one and read it out and then give your answer on it, obviously.
What a great idea. I will open it and take one out.
Yeah.
Should I read out also the person who asked the question?
Yeah.
So this question is from Leah Peltzer. How do you stay aware of thinking patterns, especially those that keep you from being your best version? Really nice question. I love to see my thoughts as, the repetitive thoughts as like tapes in my mind. that are put there, sometimes it's not even your own thoughts. Sometimes you're thinking it like, who is this even? Like, I don't even care about this, but often it's your mom, your dad, or someone in other generation. It has helped me to write down those repetitive thoughts and then to rewrite them, so turn them around. So that you are more your own best friend instead of your own inner critic, which often is the case.
Yeah.
That has helped me a lot, just to write it down and to really make it explicit.
And then you can sort of assess, is this me? Is this my mom talking?
Exactly.
Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
And then try and change it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so just to give you an example, like I used to say a lot, I should have done this, or I could have done that. And it's this repetitive thought. And I was like, it's not going to help me. It just makes me feel with regret, and I become resentful and blaming myself. And then I just rephrase that to, I choose to bring this next time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good one. I do that sometimes with with the podcast. Like, I should have asked that. All right. Then I'm already at my last question. And the question is, what does the future hold for Carlijn?
I don't know. Yeah. This year I'm focusing on building a home in Portugal, and spreading the On Purpose studio and the practices we do there. So we just want to expand that, the online course we have, the retreat we have in April, and then we'll see, because I don't plan so far ahead. It always goes differently. Yeah. I hope I just enjoy and have daily moments of joy, and I can learn a lot and be surrounded by people that I love and that they appreciate me. And that's it. And I don't know where that will be. Might be in Holland, might be Portugal, might be Mexico. Who knows?
Thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully, if we ever do a second version, it'll be in Portugal. A little warmer than here. No, thank you very much for your time and your story. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for your questions, Ryan. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope it helps other people.
Happy to hear that.